Hey YouTube, this is Douceboyz. In my last video, I mentioned briefly that I was going to start a couple small projects for the enclosures of my reptiles. And one of them was creating a more natural setup for my Leopard Gecko Bindi. And instead of going for like a particulate substrate, which I was planning like sand or like a digging clay, I decided to go back to a do-it-yourself type of clay. And I came up with this air drying clay mixed with some Eco Earth and food coloring to give it like a raspberry brown color. It doesn't really look it on the camera, but maybe if I zoom in, you see that's its natural color. It's like a light raspberry brown. If you don't add food coloring, it just comes out to be like a whitish cream, and it's not really that attractive. So yeah, it's pretty cool. You just make it and spread it on the bottom of the tank. Make sure there's some space in between the clay and the glass so that heat can come up and it doesn't warp the clay, but also if you want to get rid of it, if it gets too dirty, you can just pry it loose easily and it won't be such a hassle. And you can press all the ornaments that you want in the tank. I put some old fish tank plants in there, along with some sterilized rocks to give it a real natural look, and it also provides a basking spot on the colder days when I actually do put a heat lamp, because I do have a UTH, but on the colder days my heat lamp heats up that area, and I put a basking rock there to absorb some heat. You can also morph it. You can create little hills and valleys. I dug out a little area under her hut hide. So that's actually the hottest part of the tank, because it's a really thin layer of clay and it's right over the heat mat. And then I also made it so it didn't extend all the way to the other side of the tank. There's actually paper towel under the log in that little cave there, just in case if they want something different. Why not? I mean, I ran out of clay anyways, but whatever. Yeah, so it's really quick. Takes about like maybe 10 minutes total to make if you really want to get it right and put the right dye and Eco Earth in it. And like I said, it air dries, so you can leave it in there, which will take a little while. But if you take the gecko out and use a hair dryer, it'll probably dry within 10 minutes, and then you wait, because the air dry is obviously like too hot to put your gecko in right away. So you have to wait for it to cool down, then you can put the gecko in afterwards. But the reason why I waited a little while to post this video is because I wanted to wait and see how Bindi dealt with it, so that if I did post it, I didn't give any wrong information and like possibly harm your geckos, because that's the last thing I want to do. And she seems to really like it. She did have shedding problems. The last time she shed, she had some stuck in her eye, but the reason for that was I forgot to take out the Eco Earth that I put in her humid hide when I was testing that out. And when she shed, she of course like rubbed up against the Eco Earth and it got stuck under the skin, and then it was probably like so painful that she decided to stop trying to shed around that area, and the skin ended up getting stuck. But that was a stupid thing on my part. But I ended up getting the skin out and cleaning out her eye, and it's a little swollen, but it's starting the swelling's starting to go down. So that has nothing to do with the clay. That was all my fault with my stupid idea of keeping Eco Earth in there while she was shedding. So I took it out completely, and I just went back to paper towels, because that's what she's used to, and that's what she does good in. Yeah, so if you want a top view, this is what it looks like. It really looks pretty good. The Eco Earth mixed in there Really adds like a nice particulate look to it. It actually kind of looks like sand, but it's completely solid. It's like it's a completely solid substrate. She has went to bathroom in there, and unlike the clay that you have to bake, the air drying clay does not get stained. Here's our little poop area, and you can see the clay is the same exact color as the poop, as the area where she pooped. So there's no staining caused by any secretions. It dries up pretty nicely, but because it's air dried, it doesn't dry out completely, so it retains some of the moisture. So I was hoping that would help if your gecko would have any shedding problems, that maybe this clay would be better. Because if you bake it, of course, all the moisture is lost. But in this case, it's air dry, so there is some retention of moisture at the bottom of the clay. So that might help in a case where your gecko has shedding problems. Yeah, so I'm just gonna show you the recipe list real quick, and I'm not gonna go over it because you can just like pause the YouTube video if you want to like write it down. Alright, so here this is. Here's just a basic clay recipe, and this is just additional stuff. You just put a cupful of that in and mix it in, and maybe sprinkle some on the top before you air dry it. Food coloring, to get my raspberry color, I just did mixed red and green to various levels, and it came out the color you want. And of course you gotta sterilize this stuff, washing it or baking it for like 5 or so minutes before you put them in. And that's it. Alright guys.